Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Eh, eh, Good morning. Wake up.
Good morning.
Good morning to those who are watching us online. Thank you for being here today. In this beautiful sunny day, a bit chilly, but beautiful nonetheless. So today we're gonna have our lecture done by our friend Teresa, and she's gonna talk about spiritism, disease, medication, and vaccines. But as always, before we start, we're gonna do our initial reading and prayer done by me. All right, so we're gonna read from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Pereira, psychographic by Joanna. Sorry, the other way around. Do all you can to keep your health. Many illnesses are caused by maladjusted temperaments, emotions out of alignment, or negative spiritual influences. Anxiety, fear, pessimism, anger, jealousy, and hatred are responsible for diseases yet to be cataloged and undermine physical, emotional, and mental health. Try to keep calm, cultivating good thoughts that will provide you with inestimable benefits. As you are mentally, so will be your existence. So let's now close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus and all the beloved spirits friends present here today. Let's ask them to open our minds and our hearts for the lecture of today, that we may be able to absorb as much as possible from Jesus' teachings, so we can use that to become better spirits. Let's ask them to inspire our friend Teresa. Thank you, so be it.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank all of you for being here today. Incarnated, discarnated. I'm pretty sure the house is full. So today we are going to have our lecture. We're going to be talking about spiritism, disease, medication, vaccine. So we're going to be talking about a little bit why do we get sick, or why do we need to get sick, right? And do I take medication? Do I pray? Do I do both? Do I take a vaccine or not, right? It's a huge discussion the last few years. So that's what we're going to be touching a little bit, okay? So let's talk about first, so then why do we get sick? What do we have disease amongst us? What's the reason? It's just there to punish us? It's just, for fun? What it is? Why we do get sick, right? So first thing that we need to consider, there's two main reasons here. First thing that we have to consider is that we are on a planet of expiation, right? So that means that our moral evolution, have a piece of bad news to you guys. It's very bad, okay? It's very low. So level of evolution, moral evolution is not the greatest, okay? So that means that we still give more importance. We're still very materialistic as spirits here incarnated. We still give more importance to this ephemeral and transitory material life than we give to our immortal spiritual life, right? We're still very attached in here, right? And because it's still very attached to this material life, guess what bothers us the most? When we touch on something that's material, either financial or body's health, right? When you go through a really severe health issue that really touches us, right? It can scare us. Like if you have a heart attack, it can really scare you. It's like, I could have gone, right? So those things really, when affects us, they really become that wake-up call for us, right? We can go way faster to look for a doctor if you're in stomach pain than if you're having some mental issues, right? And then, of course, because there's also the stigma, there's a bunch of stuff, but mental, we kind of let it go a little bit. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know I should go to see. I know because I did that. For many years, I knew I should have to talk with the psychologist, and I didn't do it. I only did when it really hurt. Then I went to find one, right? But we procrastinate, right? When it's mental, more than we do when it's physical. because it bothers us more, because we are more attached to the physical, right? And because God knows us, He goes, okay, there's no problem at all. So let's use that as your way of getting lessons, of a way of re-educating yourself, right? And that's exactly what it is, because a lot of times those body diseases that we have to go affect us so much, they do become lessons. And that's what they are. They're not punishments. They are just lessons. Things that help us to become an opportunity for education or re-educating ourselves. Right? Wake up. It's a wake-up call many times. How many times we're working, really like working like non-stop and very stressed, very stressed, very stressed, very stressed. No, I have no time to stop. I have no time to stop. Until you get a flu. And now you cannot even leave the bed. All of a sudden you found the time to rest, right? The body was telling you for a long time, hey, you beyond your limit. But we don't listen. Oh no, I cannot stop. I have to do, and I have to do it. Until the body says, oh yeah, I'll show you. Now I'm gonna humble you. And I'm gonna show you, yes, you can stop. Because then if you're sick at home for a week because you really cannot work, you stay at home working. And the work's still there when you come back, right? All of a sudden there was no problem to stop for a week. But the body had to go to that point saying, you don't want to stop? I'm going to stop you. For you to rethink. Is this really what you want to do to yourself? Is really worth it? Right? So that's what they are. They become lessons. And in things that are a bit more serious, it become lessons of resignation, patience, faith, right? Lessons, opportunity for re-educating ourselves. Never punishment. Like sometimes we think, oh, that's a punishment. No, it's not. Right? The second thing is also a consequence for what we do with our lives as well, right? So whatever we do is spiritually, whatever we do as a spirit, what kind of a sentiments we carry can also impact on our health, right? And in fact, the spirit brings to us that in a more evolved planets, when spirits are way more morally evolved, they don't need to go through sickness. And they still have a material body, right? They still have to reincarnate. They still have material bodies, but their bodies are much lighter than ours. Imagine us looking to when you go to look in science and you see the body of the caveman, and now compared to our bodies today, it's like, oh, this is it's much better, we have better posture, it's much nicer. But the spirits from a way more evolved planet look to our bodies, and that's what they see. They see the body from the caveman. It's like, wow, that's a super heavy body, very dense, very heavy. They don't have it. They still have material bodies, but their bodies are much lighter, much less dense, and they don't need to go through disease because they do not require that kind of lessons anymore. The type of lessons that they require is completely different, are more moral lessons, but not material. They don't need this to understand that you need to be less selfish, less proud. They don't need to go through body disease to learn to humble themselves, to learn to resignation, patience. They don't. Those lessons they already learned. They're now another level of lessons, right? Because they still refine themselves. They're still also progressing, right? But they don't need this anymore. But we still need it. We still need, because if you don't do that, we don't learn, right? How many times we don't remember to pray when things are going wrong? When things are going fine, like we're all good, right? And then when something wrong, then we go to the spirit center, or we go to church, or we go this, or start to pray, right? That's when we're reconnected. So there's another opportunity for reconnecting with our source, which is God, right? Because a lot of times we disconnect, right? And yes, there's people who do the opposite. When they're very sick, they disconnect because they say, oh, if God exists, I wouldn't go through this, right? But it's actually the opposite, right? But to many of us, it's the moment of connection. And I can say that for myself. The moments that I most connect to God is the moments that something's going wrong in my life. That's the moment that I prayed the most. That's the moment that I connected, right? So we need this. We need that, right? So the other reason we suffer is because we deviate from the divine laws. And every time we deviate from the divine laws, we create a disturbance in our spirit. And as we know, we have a spirit, we have a perispirit, and we have the body. Actually, sorry, we do not have a spirit. We are spirit, period. Because we have this tendency to say, oh, we have a spirit. No, we don't have a spirit. We are a spirit, right? That has to be very clear. We have to stop with this phrase. And I catch myself saying all the time, oh, we have a, no, we don't have a spirit. We are a spirit, right? And our spirit works on the body through the perispirit, right? So the perispirit is the tool that we use so we can work on the body. But if as a spirit, I'm deviating from the divine laws through my actions, through my thoughts, through my sentiments, I'm a disturbed spirit. And I'm going to disturb the perispirit. And the perispirit, consequently, it's going to imprint their impact on my body. So some or at least a lot of the diseases that we create come from our state of mind, from the kind of sentiments that we create. So that's another reason for the disease. And that can imprint in our bodies some diseases or deficiencies, either on this body that I have right now, on this incarnation, but can do on the next incarnation as well. Because sometimes the disturbance from the perispirit is there, and on the next reincarnation is going to imprint on the new body, right? So that's another reason why we go through disease, because we create them. Because every time we deviate from the divine laws, we create an impact in our bodies, right? But what's very interesting in this, it's amazing how the divine law works and how obviously God is the supreme intelligence. Because look at here what's happening. I deviate from the divine laws, right? So let's say I'm angry all the time, I'm vengeful, and I have all the negativity, right? And then I will imprint that on my perispirit, and my body is going to suffer, right? Because now I create all the negative impact. Well, that can create a disease or an illness in my body. But it's that illness that's going to actually help me to rethink. So the remedy is actually exactly the problem that I created. There's some beauty in there, actually, right? Because then we see as a punishment. No, there's no punishment. God does not punish anything. If anything, we punish ourselves with the way that, because we created the disease. So I'm actually punishing myself. Every time I deviate from the divine laws, which is the laws of love and charity, then I'm punishing myself, because I'm going to have to suffer the consequence of what I'm creating, right? But the negativity that I created, it's what's going to have me, I will have to reset, because it's going to hurt in me. And I'm going to get to one point and say, yeah, that's hurting too much. I don't want to hurt anymore. So the problem that I created, it's the lesson in itself. It's beautiful, right? It's amazing how the divine law works. I think that's amazing, right? There's beauty in that, right? So even when something comes to us and you know it's consequence of what I have done, let's take as a lesson. It's not punishment. It's a lesson to say, you know what, I did, it was wrong, but now I know how to correct it, and I know how to not do it next time. It's beautiful. Lesson learned. Amazing, right? And we do learn more from making mistakes sometimes than doing the right things, at least in the level of evolution that we are right now, right? So seeing that, what's going to happen is that the level of moral evolution that we have now will have an impact on the spirit's health, right? And also, it's what's going to help you to rethink, to re-educate. So depending on our level of evolution, that's what's going to create it. Not necessarily created, but that's going to help how we're going to deal with the disease. That not always is created by, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. It is not always created by our spirit. But regardless if it's created by our spirit or not, our level of moral evolution is what dictates how we're going to deal with them and what's going to be the result. Because yes, I can go through you can have two people going through a very serious, let's say going through a cancer, exactly the same cancer. One can take that opportunity to learn resignations, patience, faith, and the one can be just angry. Angry. I don't deserve this. I don't understand that. So one took us a learning opportunity, the other no. It's like if I was in a class, the teachers, they're teaching, but it's up to each student to decide if they want to learn or not. I can be on my cell phone as the teacher is teaching, looking out the window, or I can be paying attention and say, this is going to be good for me. So it's the same thing with the disease. It's a lesson. It means that we're all going to learn the lesson? No, it's going to depend on more evolution. It's going to depend on our own choices, what I'm going to do with that process that I'm going through. Am I going to try to learn something from it or not? Right? So it's a choice that we're doing there. But regardless, it is always a way of learning. It's the lesson is there, right? And also the other thing that the disease can help us as well in this process of learning is to give a more respect and value to this body here. This is the most sacred tool that God has given us. When we all reincarnated, we all received exactly the kind of a body that we needed, with the genetic that each one of us needed, right? And it's a sacred tool because we have this, we're here incarnated, living this life, able to do all the amazing things that we do, regardless what kind of body each one of us got in, right? So sometimes with disease, that's when we learn to give it more care and respect for this body. Right? I remember I was in university and I was doing my placement. And it was a cardiac hospital, and this guy had a heart attack. And if you know anybody who has had a heart attack, ask to them how it felt when he felt the pain, the chest pain from a heart attack, right? They all gonna tell, 100% they all gonna tell he felt I was gonna die. Because it's the one pain that if you ask anybody who had it and ask, what did you feel? They say, I thought I was gonna die. I was 100% sure was it. So that's called the pain of death. Right? Because that's exactly how you feel, like, goodbye, it's now, right? So I remember he was post-surgery, doing well, and he's telling his story to me. And he's saying that he used to smoke 4 packs of cigarettes a day. I'm not talking about a week, I'm a day, okay? So he said he used to light one on another and smoke, like from the moment I wake up was the first thing that I would do, and I would go to the office, and I think he was a lawyer, and he'd say I would literally at the time you could smoke inside anywhere that you want. So he used to literally light one on the other. He didn't need matches anymore. He needed matches for the first one in the morning, because he literally, and then he would leave office, and most evenings go to the bar with his friends to drink, smoke, and play poker. That's what he used to do, right? And he said, and now I look at and said, and I could never quit, never. I didn't try, because then it would be impossible. I was so hooked up on it. And he said, now that he had this heart attack and I thought I was gonna die, he said, now I look back and that's exactly the words that I can remember, like, clearly. He said, I was a clown in the circus. Right? That's how he saw himself. He was a clown in the circus. And he said, I will never, ever put another cigarette in my mouth again. So he needed a heart attack, almost died, to completely reset his life, his lifestyle, right? And imagine it, I'm not just talking about physical health here, right? But a guy who spent hours working, was a workaholic, from there went to the bar most of the nights. Where his family? Where's family and friends? Probably had no time for them, right? So completely reset. Right? And then I don't know what happened now, but I'm pretty sure this guy's not going to the bar anymore every evening to drink and smoke, right? You need one illness to do a complete reset, right? To rethink about not only his physical health, but his entire life, right? I remember in my first years of working back home in the ICU, a patient telling me, and he's not dying, but what he had was pretty much eventually, like, he had a short time, like maybe another year or so. And he telling me, I realized that I wasted my life with things that were not important. I should have given more importance to my family, to my friends, but I was too busy working too much to keep a lifestyle because I thought that that's what would be important for my family. And I actually forgot to be with my family. Right? But he had to go to that illness process. And he says, and now it's too late. And I'm talking in my mind, like, no, it's not too late. As a spiritist, I thought, no, it's not too late. Because the connections, even the way you discarnate, is going to still be there. And you're still going to be able to, redo it. Because that's what is the law for re-education, restarting, redoing it. And even though he got this conscious at the end of this incarnated life, he still got the conscious. He understood, right? And that's going to be carried on with him. So it's never lost, and it's never too late. Yeah, maybe too late for this incarnation, but it's never too late for us as immortal spirits to wake up. Right? And I've seen men, because the field that I work, I've seen many cases like that. I had a patient who, again, workaholic, went through a serious heart issue. He would be what today would be called a miracle that he survived, even though we know miracles do not exist. Completely changed his life. Didn't go back to his work. He had like a high position work. He actually went to do a manual work, like literally to make, I don't know, peanuts, because I don't care. I want a time to be with my wife. I took her for granted, and I'm never going to do that again. Completely changed his lifestyle. Completely. If he hadn't had the disease that almost killed him, he would still, until this day, wasting his life. Wasting a whole incarnation because I have to work. Right? Work is very important. The bills are not fictitious. They're there. They're knocking at our doors every month. We have to pay, we have to dress, we have to eat. But we need to find a balance in our lives. And a lot of times that's what disease does with us. It's a wake-up call to say, what are you doing with your life? What's really important in your life? Put your lives in perspective, especially when something really serious, right? But sometimes how many people just to have like a flu, like you really get the person who like cannot stop and then get the flu that knocks you out for a week. It's like, oh, now we understood. I had a burnout a couple of years ago. Put me home in 3 weeks. Now I literally do not touch work until I get to work. Not that in my field I kind of really need to work from home, but sometimes on my way to work, people write text me and I used to check and answer. I do not answer. Anything that's work related, when I put my foot in the hospital, I'll answer. It's not my time. I walk to work. My 20 minutes walk to work is the 20 minutes when I enjoy the sun. I listen to the birds, right? Listen to my music. It's when I do my prayers in the morning. That's it. It's my moment, right? Work balance, right? That's what we do. But sometimes we need a wake-up call to really put in perspective life and think more. Really connect, do the connections that we need to do. That's really important for us. Right? And that's what's going to happen with us. When we really grow morally, when we get better, we don't need the diseases anymore. Just like in the more evolved planets. We won't need it. Because we won't need that kind of wake-up call. We already know what's more important. We already going to create better connections of love, charity. We're going to be less selfish. We're going to be less greedy. So we won't need, right? Just like in the more evolved planets, right? But then there's the question that I used to question this. Does all diseases have a spiritual origin? Because a lot of people think, no, every single disease that we have has a spiritual origin, right? It has to be something spiritual, right? So then in the book, Thought and Life, by the Spirit of Emmanuel, he says, no, not all diseases have a spiritual origin. However, your state of spirit, so whatever your spirit vibrates, all your thoughts and all your mental creations have an influence and impact on all the diseases of the body. So basically what he's saying here is that no, your spirit doesn't create all the diseases that you go through. However, how your spirit behave every time you get sick will have an impact. So, for example, when a body comes in contact with an external pathogen, a virus, bacteria, a fungus, my spirit didn't create that, right? We didn't like created COVID, like thinking like, oh, and then the virus happened inside us. We didn't, right? The virus outside there, virus, bacteria, fungus, they're there, the external pathogens, right? Our bodies get in contact with that, and this pandemic can help us to see this very clear, right? Some people, no effect, no symptoms. Some people light symptoms. Some people very heavy symptoms, and some people was lethal, right? So basically, what I'm going to say is that every time, for example, you have an external pathogen comes in, of course, taking in consideration genetics, predispositions, baseline health. So if I'm already someone who's very unhealthy because I already have some pre-existing diseases or conditions, right? The impact that this external pathogen, this virus, this bacteria can have in my body is going to be bigger or lesser, right? Again, pandemic can help us to understand that. The population that most suffer was the elderly population because they are already immune suppressed, naturally immune suppressed. Many of them already have many diseases at baseline. And even the young people with already baseline disease, those are the people who are more prone to have severe symptoms or even to be lethal, right? To discarnate through this pandemic, right? So that's have to take that in consideration, right? So we have this. So depending already how your body is. But what he's saying is, yeah, but depending how you are as a spirit, you have an impact as well. Because if I'm already someone who's very angry, who's very negative and everything, and this virus comes in, or this bacteria or this fungus comes in and already finds a organic organization that is already disturbed, it's just going to potentialize the damage, right? And science proves that. There's many scientific papers there that shows that when you're stressed, very stressed, your immune system drops. And we also know that you go through a very stressful phase in your life, you're more prone to catch a cold, allergies, whatever it is, right? Stomach pain, our body responds to it, right? Our immune system goes down. So now if I'm already super stressed and my immune system is already go down and I'm getting contact with some bacteria or something, bingo, right? Much easier for the bacteria. The immune system is already fighting your stress. I can come here and do whatever I want. This immune system is not working great. Woo-hoo, fantastic, right? So depending how we're feeling, depending on how we care inside of us, we have a huge impact on any illness that we have, right? From a simple flu to any cancer related. And again, I see that in my work. I see my patients are all post-surgery. The ones that, more grateful and the recovery is always faster. The ones who are depressed, who, I don't even know I did the surgery. And so it's like, it takes longer. It's like, come on, let's go. It affects. And you know that our mental state affects our body, right? Because our spirit is, and our mental state is our spirit, is who we are. And it will affect us, right? Affect our body. So affect our capability of fighting a disease or not. Right? So basically what Emmanuel brings in this is in the book is that if you're someone who cultivates sentiments of love, thoughts and actions of goodwill, if you keep balanced emotions, and I'm talking about balanced emotions, okay? Because again, we're in a planet of expiation. So max that we can do this time is to be balanced, which means maybe for actually two bad thoughts that we have, can have one good one and go. Because if you really can keep your thoughts 100% positive, 24/7, 12 months a year, I have a good news and I have a bad news for you. Good news that the only reason you incarnated here because you're a missionary and here to help us to evolve. Bad news, if you didn't come as a missionary, you reincarnated in the wrong planet. Okay, descended to the wrong planet. You should be in a planet of regeneration, a happy planet, not here, right? Because the truth is, who here can keep their thoughts pure all the time? I can't. Far from it, right? But if you can at least keep a balance with it, right? When I notice that I'm ruminating for too long something that's negative, I'll change my way of thinking, right? We have Tanya here it says that I like when she says that she decided to start to bring books like Happy Life to her work. And every time something really bad happened and she was irritated, she would take a thought, take one message, read, have a prayer, and she said, and that would change my vibration, right? That's trying to find that balance, because that's what we can do now, find balance. So is to try to replace bad thoughts with something good, something that negative. So in general, we keep that balance in the sense that we're not all the time angry, that we're all the time thinking about negative. Like, we try to do our best to be a little bit more positive. We're trying to be our best to, So if in general, we are those people who cultivate those thoughts of love, goodwill, kind of keep our emotions balanced. We contribute for the health of the spirit, right? So we have a healthier spirit, right? And consequently, we keep the harmony of the pure spirit and the body. So we're more prepared. We're in a better state to whatever comes towards us. Again, I'll go back to my patients so it's easier to me. I always know post surgery which ones were very active pre, and I'm not even going to talk about spiritually. Okay? I'm going to just talk about pure body. Okay, I know which ones were very active pre, and which ones were sedentary. And I work with transplants, and our lung transplants have to exercise pre, okay? And I know which ones did, because every time you go through a surgery, your body's always going to lose something, especially if for some reason, a little bit of complications, still a bit longer in the ICU, not so mobile after the first few days, you're always going to lose some strengthening there, some muscle mass. But if you're really strong and good, even if you lose a little bit, it won't feel much because you have so much strength. And if you lose a little bit, your mobility after will be okay, right? But if you're already very weak and very sedentary, when you go through the process of surgery and everything, even the little bit that you lose is a lot because you already didn't have much to start with. And that's when your rehabilitation post, now it's a long process, from barely being able to sit up to then eventually, after a long process, be able to walk again, right? So I know, because the stronger you go to the surgery, the very good, stronger you're going to come out of it, right? So spiritually, it's the same. The more harmonized our spirit is, better conditions our body is to whatever comes towards us. So now every time we have to go through a disease or anything negative that comes to us, yes, it still bothers us. Like, we're not perfect. It bothers us. We're going to have that period of negativity. But then eventually we have the preparedness inside of us to take a deep breath, say, no, that's not how I'm going to react in here. I'm going to take this as a lesson, and I'm going to take this in a good way or in the best way that I can do it, right? But the problem is that the other pathway is exactly the same. So in the same way that if I keep good thoughts, good sentiments in general, right, it helps me to be a healthy spirit and keep a harmonized pure spirit and body. The same happens if I'm not. If I'm always hating, how many of us carry resentments the whole life? Anger towards someone, towards my parents, or towards whatever happened in my childhood. Whole life we carry resentments inside of us. And then every time something negative comes, it just adds up. It's much harder. It's much harder even for us to take that moment of difficulty through a disease as a lesson. Because if I'm already an angry person, most likely I'm going to be angry now because, see, my life's already horrible. And now I have this to add it up, as if I need that. That's how I'm going to take it. Instead of understand that this disease came to say, hey, wake up, because the way you're behaving is not the best one. Change it. Look how precious your life is. Embrace it and let it go of the negativity, right? Because that's what happens. Imbalance in spirit is going to create a disturbed perispirit and a disturbed body. Much harder for us to deal with the difficulties that life brings to us, right? And then if you think about, okay, a lot of all the illnesses that we create, and these days in our science, we talk about the psychosomatic illness, and we start to really, because science now more and more starting to bring the spiritual and the material together, and more talking about mental health, psychosomatic illness, and it's a reality in there, right? So since we know that our spirit, first of all, creates a lot of our disease, and even when that doesn't create, has a huge impact on it, shouldn't just pray be enough? Shouldn't we just be able to pray and and with a lot of faith and be cured and have the healing happening? And there's a passage. I was watching this lecture from Arthur Valadares. I like him a lot. I think his lectures are amazing, and he brings that in the book Boa Nova, which I don't think it's translated yet to English. I could be wrong. There is a passage where Jesus is with disciples, and Jesus always used to do his lectures, and then in the end he used to do the cures, right? And one day the disciples said to him, Master, why don't we do the opposite? Like, why don't you cure people first? Because then you catch their attention, right? And you're gonna see what you do, and then more than ever they wanna watch your lectures, and then so you cure them first, and then you do the lectures. And Jesus knew exactly what would be the result. He said, yes, sure, let's do it. Let's follow what you guys want. And next day, that's exactly what he did. He cured people first. And guess how many people stayed for the lecture? Almost nobody, right? So in that moment, what he wants to teach to the disciples was two things. The first, I'm not here to cure bodies. I'm here to cure the souls, because that's the real cure, right? And he wants to teach them that the real cure really comes from the spirit. Because, yes, I can, cure the blind, the so-called at the time, the leprosies, everything. But if they don't understand what I'm really bringing here, there's no real cure. There's only a cure on the body. And they're going to leave. And the real medication that I had here for them, they missed. So that's why we cannot just pray and wait for the spirits to cure us and bring the healing, because we need to do our job. Because imagine if every time I create all the abuses, mental and physical, right? Because our daily habits affects our bodies, right? The excesses that we have. So I create all the abuses, I create the illness, and I just need to pray. And I pray with a lot of faith, and that's it, and I'm cured. Do you think that we would learn anything? Absolutely not. That's in the book Missionaries of Light, the passage about the 9 passes. So the guy used to come to the spiritual center and get passes. He had a stomach issue from excess of drinking and food. And then they would give him the passes and heal it. And then one day, Andrea Luiz in the spiritual plane is watching what's happening in the spiritual plane inside that spiritual center. And one of the helpers one of the workers in the spiritual plane can say, hey, the guy is back, so are we going to have giving a healing pass? And the mentor says, no, we're no longer. Because we already, every time he comes here, we give him the healing pass, he gets better, and he goes right back to his abuses. Now, we're only going to give him a pass just to alleviate, we will not cure anymore, because now he's going to suffer the consequences of what he's been doing to his body. Because otherwise, we're not helping him anymore. Now we're enabling him to do those excesses, right? Missionaries of Light, Luis. So it's a fantastic book. I really recommend you to read it. So they can't, because we wouldn't learn anything. We're just going to be enabled by the spiritual prayer to keep doing exactly what we us do. Just damage this body, damage our minds, right? So they can't. They're here to help us, but they cannot do the job for us, right? And that's why Jesus, in many passages in the gospel, says, your faith cured you. Because there was have to have a change inside on those people. When they really came to Jesus and says, I do believe in you, it's like, I understand what you're saying. I do see you as the Messiahs. They would have a change of heart, and then they will be ready to be. And that's why Jesus say, your faith, because you understood I'm here to teach you. And then you get, your faith cured you, right? So it wasn't me who cured you. Because yes, I could cure your body, but I couldn't cure you, because cure you is as a spirit, is your choice. I cannot do that choice for you. And it's up to each one of us to do that choice. How much we really want to cure. And what kind of a cure do we really want? Do we want to change ourselves or not? And of course, we need to cure this body as well, right? But heal this body. But what's the real cure here, right? What's the real healing here, right? So we always have to remember the disease are the remedy for the spirit. They're not punishment. They're actually the ones, and that's the challenges, the lessons that our spirit needs to go through, so it helps us to grow, help us to be more patient, resignated, help us sometimes to reset our lifestyles to a better one, right? So let's never forget that. Right? It's almost like I have to be grateful that we have them, because they teach us, they help us to grow. The other reason the spirits cannot do the job for us is, have we realized how much scientific knowledge has come from disease? How much we have grown as a society intellectually because of the disease that we have been going through for millenniums? How much? Right? And every time scientists are mobilized, many scientists are mobilized to research, right? It's us coming together to help each other. Because when Dr. Best at Toronto General Hospital found the insulin, it completely changed the life of everybody who had diabetes type 1. If you're born with diabetes type 1, it was a death sentence. And it still gives me goosebumps every time that I read the story. Because when he found out with his colleague, the insulin, they had children. Toronto General used to have children at the time in the hospital. And they're all in coma with the parents beside them, just waiting for their death. And he starts on the first one, injecting the insulin, and it goes one by one. And by the time he gets to the last one, the first one's waking up. And one by one, those kids woke up. Scientists putting together a knowledge to get a cure for something. It's not a cure yet. We don't have the cure for diabetes yet. But change the lives. Diabetes type 1 is no longer a death sentence. Right? And that's just one of the thousands of diseases that we have out there, right? Through scientific knowledge, because we wanted to mitigate each other's pain, we have something simple as pain medication. Pain medication. Every time I need to take a pain medication, it's like, oh, thank God. There is a pain medication, right? Pain medication. Why? Because someone in the past, like, this hurts and I don't want to see my family hurt. I don't want to see my family. So let's find out how do we mitigate this pain. Right? So how much knowledge, how much community doesn't come together to mitigate each other's pain, to scientific knowledge, right? To try to find a cure for many diseases, right? How much scientists are not together all around the world to try to find a cure for cancer. And some cancers that before used to be a death sentence, now they have a cure. They have treatment, right? Some of them still not, but many of them we do. Right? So amazing. And that's how we grow. And we have to remember that the Spirit's book, Kardec brings to us, we are created simple and ignorant. And you're going to reach perfection when we grow morally and intellectually. So all the intellectual knowledge that comes to us today through any kind of a science, it comes from God as well. It's knowledge that God allowed us to have, allowed us to develop. So it also comes from, because sometimes we separate, right? Oh, what comes from my peers comes from God. What comes from science comes from the scientists. No, it comes from God. Those scientists were human beings created by God with intellectual capacity that they develop because God allows them to develop. Everything comes from God, right? So those challenges help us to grow as a society. First, intellectually, because intellectually you're like number one. If you look at how much we've grown scientifically in the last 40 years, it's crazy, right? Morally, we're going, right? It's not as great, but a bit slow, but we're growing as well, right? And as we evolve more morally, the less we're going to need disease. And that's exactly what happened now. So we're now in a plan of transition to world of regeneration. And look, more and more science is finding the cure for diseases. Right? Look, it's interesting this. Because we know when we finish this transition, we are a planet of regeneration. It's not that all diseases are going to be gone, because it's just going to be a beginning of a planet of regeneration. And it's going to be like a 50-50 in terms of good and bad in there. But we're going to need less and less. And look what's happening in science. As we go to regeneration, science is booming. We now have genomics, for example, that can be easily the cure for every single genetic disease that we have. As we go into a planet of regeneration, less and less the kind of lessons are going to be needed, and science starts to find more and more cure for diseases, right? Because morally, we're going to be much better, and we're going to need less of those lessons, right? So look how interesting goes. So how the intellectual and moral eventually are going to level, and they're going to be walking together side by side. So let's talk about the last part, which pretty much I think by now kind of give you a guess on the answers. So let's talk about medication and vaccines, right? Do I take them? Do I don't take them? What do I do, right? So I'm going to bring two questions from the book O Consolador, which, as I checked, I don't think it's translated. It'll be The Consoler. It was translated. It's by the Spirit of Emmanuel. And on question 95, Emmanuel asks like this. In face of the efforts done by medicine, what should we consider health? Right? So medicine now these days able to cure so many diseases and everything. What do we consider health? And Emmanuel answers this. For man on earth, means us here incarnated, right? Health is the perfect balance of the material organs. So this material body, right? However, for the spiritual realms, health is the perfect harmony of the soul, which many times, to obtain it, humans need the contribution of precious transitory diseases and infirmities of the earth. So yeah, for here incarnated, you guys think the health is a perfect body. For us, is a soul in harmony. The problem is that to get to the soul in harmony, you have to go through to the illnesses of the body, because they're those that are going to teach you patience, resignation, faith, So yes, you need to have a harmonious spirit, a spirit that's in peace. That's health. Because then even your vicissitudes and illnesses of the body won't happen. But to get here, you're going to need to get sick once in a while. Right? So that's what he answers us. And then on question 96, he asks about, how much our thoughts and everything affects our bodies and our health. So then on question 97, this is his question. If the infirmities have its origin in the spirit, is it fair to apply the human medications, surgeries, etc.? So if the problem is the spirit, right, who's either causing the illness or reinforcing the illness, shouldn't we just treat the spirit, them, and forget about why do I need to do surgeries or take a medication or take a vaccine, right? Why should I? And that's his answer. Man should mobilize all the resources in his reach in favor of his organic harmony. All, including medication, surgery, vaccines, everything, right? For a long time still, so seeing like you guys far away. So for now and for a long time still, right? Humanity will not be able to live without the contribution from the doctor, the surgeon, the pharmacist, who are missionaries of the collective good. So to be grateful that we have doctors, that we have pharmacists, that we have nurses, that we have physiotherapists, that we have, I need to talk about my category, sorry, I'm biased, yeah. Right? There we have all this technology there, we have medication, there we have vaccines. We should be grateful and you should use them because we do have a material body that needs the resources right now. We're not moral spirits. They're like, here only vibrating light. We're not, and our bodies need those resources. Okay, and he's saying here, gonna need still for quite a bit, right? So keep going, right? He says humans will have to treat their body health until the day they will learn to preserve and defend it by conserving the precious health of the soul. So the day that we learn how to conserve our souls from all the things that deviate from the divine laws, that's it. Then we don't need it anymore because our bodies won't get sick anymore. Then I'll be out of job. That's what's going to be. And I'm okay with that. Retirement. Early one. Now it's not going to be early one because we're far away from this. So I'll keep working until I can retire by age. Yeah. And it keeps going. Above all, we must recognize that the service of defense of organic energies in the human process, as they currently occur, ensure the stability of a great workshop of sanctifying efforts in the world. So it's exactly what we spoke about, that actually all these efforts that are done by sciences, by doctors, by everybody who try to mitigate disease is a sanctifying workshop. It's a workshop that brings us together, that it's people work for people, helping to make the life better from each other. Isn't that the divine law? We help each other. So it's a sanctifying workshop, this work that's done by science and by all professionals around to mitigate our diseases and to help us, right? When, however, the spiritual man dominates the physical man, the medicinal elements of the earth will be transformed into the excellence of psychic resources. In this great workshop will find itself elevated to a sanctuary of spiritual forces and possibilities with the soul. So naturally, we're gonna, as we have less and less problems with our material body, because we're not gonna be so materialistic anymore, our medicine is gonna be purely spiritual. So it's gonna just be working our spiritual, in our moral evolution. That's what happened in more evolved planets. Yeah, they still have lessons to go, but they're moral. They're more lessons to the spirit to keep growing, not to the, and then we won't need the medicine anymore. But it's going to be a natural transition, right? And if you think we're right started, because we never spoke about mental health so much as we do now. So starting, right? Starting to have that connection. So going back to the question, do we need to take our medications and our vaccines? Yes. The answer is yes. Should I take the vaccine? Because that has been the, I don't want to go really much into this because it can be quite polemic, but should we take the vaccines? Yes, we should take, right? Because that all the scientific knowledge comes from God as well. It's there to help us. But I don't know if you noticed, I didn't ask, do I have to take? I asked, should I take? Yes, we should. Because if the question is, do I have to take? Do I must to take? The answer is no. Because we all have something called free will. We all have the free will to choose. Do I want to take the vaccine or not? However, we're all going to have to suffer the consequence of our choice, good and bad, because the law of action and reaction is a reality as well. Yes, we have a free will. I can do whatever choice I do, but also there's a law of action and reaction. We cannot run away from it. So whatever our choices that I do, depending on the intentions, what I take them, I'm going to be responsible more or less for my actions. And I'm going to give an example. Now we have this whole, and it's even before pandemic, the anti-vax. Parents don't vaccinate the kids and everything because I don't believe, because science this, because science no, because, the pharmaceutical companies, and I know pharmaceutical companies are not the most ethical companies, but it doesn't matter. The medicine is there, is to help. Why I'm going to make my kid go through an illness that I have a simple vaccine, but anyways, I'm not going to go into it, right? But remember, just before the pandemic, I think a couple of years before, we have an outbreak of measles in Canada, which is funny because I think we had like 6 or 8 cases, and I'm thinking, 600 cases an outbreak, okay. I thought it was funny, but it was, right? And basically it happens with parents who didn't vaccinate their 2 kids, went to abroad, they got contaminated there, came back, went to school because they actually went to the ER, the doctor didn't realize it was measles, so I thought it was some allergy, and those kids went to school, contaminated some other kids that probably were vaccinated, and that's it. So other people was like, see those parents who don't vaccinate the kids. And it was really sad to hear this talk. I saw an interview with the father. The reason he didn't vaccinate is not because he didn't believe in the vaccines. The reason he didn't vaccinate is because the year before, there is a very bad scientific paper that came in on the news. And every time there's something really like this, the news put all over, right? All over, saying that the vaccine for measles was that in each 3 kids who took the vaccine, 1 developed autism. So he said, you know what? I had 2 boys. So 1 in 3, I have 2. So there's a huge chance that at least one of them is going to develop autism. And he said, and then we didn't know what to do. Do I vaccinate? Do I not vaccinate? And they decide not to, based on a scientific paper that a year later was completely debunked by scientific work, because it was a very bad methodology. The results were not really the best ones, but that one, the media didn't put all over, right? So that's what he did. He wasn't against vaccines. He just made a choice that he thought was the best for his kids, okay? So here, just to show that there's intention involved as well, right? It's different. So I'm not going to take it. It's a political thing. It's my body. I don't care. It's because this government, they want to put a microchip under my skin with the vaccine, and it's because it was Bill Gates, right? Was put a chip on a vaccine. I don't think Bill Gates cares what I do in my life, but that's okay, fine. But so intention. So should I do my surgery? Should I take the medication? Should I go to the psychologist? Because I have also a lot of people, I have in my family, someone who refused to treat a depression because I'm a spiritist. I don't need this. It's a huge mistake, right? How many times here during fraternal meetings, we don't ask the person, are you seeing a psychologist? The person says, yes, I'm told, keep it. Don't stop your medication. Right? That's very important. Spiritism passes. None of this substitutes any treatment that we're doing. Medication, psychotherapy, any of this. This is all important. One just enhances the other, but they're all important, right? Do I have to? No, it's a choice. The consequence, then a consequence is not a choice. Consequences are mandatory. So that's what we have to remember. That's pretty much what I have to bring to you guys today, right? I hope it helped a little bit to light a bit of this issue of, medication or medication. Should we pray? Yes, we should pray. We should, enhance and put it all together because, but most of all, let's watch a little bit more how we're vibrating, because that's going to make a huge difference in everything that we have to go through in life, because we all have to go through some illnesses and difficulties. And let's just give a better chance of our bodies to fight with it by prayer, by keeping good thoughts and positive thinking there.
Thank you, Tay. Do we have any questions or comments? Yeah, it's a lot to think about it, right? But I think that how they closed, it's really important, right? Like we need to take care of the physical and the mental, not just focus on one or the other. And God is good enough to give us all the resources that we need. So let's just take advantage of it, right? All right, so thank you for those who joined us online. Hope to see you guys next week, and we'll just get ready to do our passes here.